This new Hunter Arc build makes Legend and Master tanks insta-kill themselves with one redirected shot from your Arc Staff. Okay, this may seem quite OP, but I can assure you, it's a fun one. You'll be running around redirecting shots fired at you from enemies right back to them, while taking no damage from all sources. In some places where adds hit incredibly hard, you'll redirect their damage back at them or another enemy, but 6 times more powerful, allowing you to insta-kill them, or cause some serious damage. Well, in some areas. In easier modes, or harder modes but massively underpowered, this exotic will not be as effective simply because the damage fired at you will either be very low or very high, but due to being under leveled, the redirected impact will be significantly lower as your DPS output is much weaker. Either way, this build is for hunters who want to have a bit of fun with the classic Arc Staff, and there will be a few exotics you can pair with this build, so it's not completely all bad, so stay tuned and I'll see you on the other side. This video is sponsored by USMMO. They sell cheap Destiny 2 silver and you can use my code DIVIDE for a sweet discount. See the details below, and if you find this video useful, be sure to leave a rating, comment your thoughts, subscribe and share for more, and now without further delay, let's begin. Now before we start, if you do like these videos and you want to see more fun builds or top builds for Destiny 2 Witch Queen, then feel free to view that full playlist below, as I do cover builds weekly here on the channel. Now this build is going to be a fairly short one as it's a pretty basic build that honestly isn't the best in terms of dealing damage, but it's quite a fun one because we will be using a new exotic Blight Ranger for the hunters, which I have wanted to cover for quite some time now since it came out. Now this exotic isn't great, but it's probably one of the best looking hunter exotics if I'm being honest, which is why we got to make a build for this thing for those who for any reason want a hunter arc build to use for this new exotic. So the way this build works is you'll start by performing a finisher, which will spawn 2 arc elemental wells, then picking up those wells will give us 4 stacks of charger light, which you then want to throw a grenade for super energy. You'll then run around using your melee to get more super energy and recharge the grenade, which will be used for the next stack of super energy, as we will be using energy converter for faster supers, as this is a super build. Once you have your super, you'll then use it to redirect shots fired at you back towards the enemy. Now this isn't as good as people thought it'd be, but it can be quite fun to play around with, although with this build there will be a few things you can use as a replacement to that exotic, so it's not entirely awful, and we'll get to that very soon. Now getting into the build setup, the loadout is completely your choice, although if you want to maximise the build's potential, I'd recommend using arc weapons, but if you're looking to go for faster supers, you can use a bad juju, as that will get the job done. For the subclass, we are an Arc Strider middle tree, and man, I can't wait for Arc 3.0 because they really need it. But this will come with Whirlwind Guard, where you can block with your Arc Staff, and Ebb and Flow, where hitting a target with an arc ability and meleeing them will give you ability energy. I'd put on a Gambler's Dodge because that will get your melee straight back when you use it near an enemy, which is what you want. For the exotic though, we are going to be using the new Blight Ranger, and before we take a look at that, the other exotics you can use are Assassin's Cowl. This is if you want invisibility when using your melee and finishers. Raden Flux if you want to chain Arc Staff hits to buff damage. This is what I recommend the most if you want to take this build seriously for endgame PvE, but you can use Lucky Raspberry to improve your Arc Bolt grenades, or the Harness Chest where guarding doesn't consume extra energy. For this build though, we're going to be using Blight Ranger, as I've not actually covered this one yet here on the channel. This reads, attacks you redirect with your Arc Staff deal massively increased damage and generates orbs of power for your allies. This is, I believe, a 612% damage buff to be specific, so if a tank hits you, which is one of the hardest hitting things in the game, you can redirect that back, but 6 times more powerful, which is lethal as hell. But in most cases where you have a boss hitting you, it's really not going to do much, so this is only worth using for a bit of fun, or against bosses that hit extremely hard to the point they would insta-kill you, but while you are massively above the recommended power. This probably won't be good in GMs though, so your alternative if you want to take this build more seriously is to use Raden Flux instead, which is actually a really good exotic for the hunter. As for the mods, the first mod is Overcharge Wellmaker to spawn 2 arc elemental wells when you use your finisher, and then we'll use Elemental Charge to become Charge Light when picking up those wells. But as it matches our subclass, we will get 4 stacks, so we will need a Supercharged to hold those 4 stacks, and then we'll use those 4 stacks on Energy Converter. That is to get up to 50% of our super energy by simply just throwing a grenade. Now the last slot is up to you. you could use a charged up for the final 5th stack, or you could go with a Font of Might to improve your arc weapon's damage. If you don't want to go with Elemental Wells, you can actually go with the classic standard route and use stacks on stacks, a supercharged, taken charge, charged up, and then a harmonic siphon with an arc weapon so that you can generate orbs of power. But for the normal mods, we are going to be using the harmonic siphon anyway, along with hands-on for bonus super energy or melee kills, your champion mods that you need in your gauntlets, along with impact induction to reduce your grenade cooldown when using your melee on adds. Then in the chest we have thermoshock plating and concussive dampener to resist incoming damage. Although I haven't tested this, but I wonder if the damage redirected will be higher if you don't use damage resistant mods. If you know, do let me know down below. But for the legs, we're going to be using Innovation to reduce our grenade cooldown when picking up orbs. And then for the class, you want to use your cooldown mods unless you're in activities with champions. Then you want to instead use a Lucent Finisher for infinite heavy ammo. As for the stats, go with Discipline, then Mobility and Recovery. Now this build isn't the best build in the game when paired with the Blight Ranger, but it's a fairly good one when using Raden Flux. The two main problems with Blight Ranger though are firstly, the damage is awful 9 times out of 10 and it's extremely hard to control. And secondly, when you're redirecting shots and your super is about to end, if you haven't killed that target shooting you, you're most probably going to die the moment you come out of that super. It's kinda sad, but I hope when Arc 3.0 comes out, this exotic will have a nice place in some of the top meta builds. But give me your thoughts on this down below. But guys, that about does it for today for your new Hunter Arc Strider build in Destiny 2 Witch Queen Season of the Risen. Next, as always, be sure to check out the full playlist of top best builds in Season 16 down below. And if you liked this one, be sure to leave a rating as it really helps me out. And whatever you guys get up to, have a good one and I'll catch you very soon for the next video.